everybody, Diane here. It has been a forever minute since I've done a video or uploaded anything, and I do hugely apologize for that. Life totally has gotten in the way. But I've recently had a few ladies ask me about machine binding. Machine binding definitely has a place, and for me it has a pretty significant place because I have a really hard time with hand stitching for any period of time. Just arthritis, and it causes issues. But it's perfect for these quick items like table runners or pot holders, or getting a quilt done really fast that you need to get out, especially like baby quilts, because they do get a lot of wear and tear. And it goes fast. And here's how. So the first thing is prepping your binding, and you want to get everything lined up and press your seams open. Secondly, I do not iron my bindings other than just to get them straight. And I do this. It was a video that I'd seen a while back where she said don't press it in half. What that does is it tries to keep that fabric in line with itself, and it's where things can start to pucker because that press is trying to hold it there. Whereas if you don't press it and you just flip it over, it gives quite a bit more, and it gives a little bit of freedom for a little bit of extra movement. And I've been doing this for a year and a half now, and I have had the best results with not pressing my bindings in half. Plus, it saves me a lot of time. So we've reached our first corner, and it's a pretty simple process. I clip again right towards the end, bring it all the way down, fold it back on itself at a 90-degree, matching the bottom of the binding with the bottom of the quilt. And you can see where I'm pointing that out right there with my fingers. And then folding it back on itself. So you want that to be a nice little corner where the fabrics line up at the top, underneath. Nothing's really out of alignment. And I'll show you again. We'll go through it a couple of times on here. And then I just keep clipping my binding on, just folding it in half and clipping it along. So the other thing I always try to do before I even get started is I kind of lay my binding out to make sure that my pressed open seams don't fall on a corner. It gets incredibly bulky. You can do it, but it does get really bulky. But you see, I'm pointing that out. I'm like, you want to try to make sure that it's above or behind those corners. And again, we fold the binding in half. We hold it down to that corner. We fold it back on itself, lining up the bottoms of both the quilt edge and the binding edge, and then fold it back over itself, again lining up that top edge with the fold underneath it. And you'll see it when you actually go through and do it. And then I always clip right there at the fold, and then right around the corner from the fold, just to hold it into place. And then we just keep clipping. And one more corner. Again, we'll get that clip in about 3 inches from the edge. Make sure our binding is, let me arrange this so it makes sense. Fold that in half. Fold your binding in half. flip it over at a 90-degree to the right, flip it back on itself. There we go. Nice and even. Oops. And you can see how it's like at a nice little 90-degree triangle will stick up if you pop it out of the way. And clip it down. We'll just keep clipping as we work our way around. I think we have one more corner to go. A little bit different angle. Try to get a little bit tighter in here. So again, binding's folded in half. I hold it down with my hand, flip it over on itself to the right, lining up the bottom of the binding with the bottom of your quilt edge, and then flip it back on itself. Line everything up, and you can see that there's nothing hanging out loose at the top of that, you know, just below my ring finger there where that fold is. And then clip that down to hold it in place. Clip it again. And keep on clipping. Okay, so we've worked our way all the way around our table runner, and we need to leave ourselves some space to be able to join this binding. And so what you want to do is leave yourself at least 12 inches between your start point and your end point per se. That's where we need to stop, and we need to have, I like to say, about 12 inches of overlap on both. I have about 6 inches of overlap here, which will work. It's just I've been doing a lot of these. So take your time and try to get that 12-inch overlap. Using my 1/4-inch foot, I am sewing my binding on all the way around. You know, take it slow, nice and easy. It's not a race. One little segment at a time. And I'll meet you at the first corner. And here we are, coming up to our first corner. I'm going to take it up to about 2 or 3 inches before that corner. So give yourself a little bit of room, because we need to unfold this corner, lay it straight, stitch it down to about 1/4 inch before that actual corner, before it meets. And I know this angle's not a real good one, but hopefully I'll have another one in a minute. I always back stitch here just to hold it. And then it's easier for me to cut my threads, fold it back on itself, again, lining it all back up so that it's like, again, at that 90-degree. And I'm turning everything. I don't use a lot of pins or anything like that. I'm sorry, the quilt's the table runner's kind of in the way here. But again, oh, there we go. 1/4 inch, and start at that very edge, and just keep on rolling, just like you did on the straightaway. So it's actually pretty simple if you just kind of take it slow the first few times. again, we're going to kind of stop and reposition everything, unfold and unclip. I usually end up having to unclip about a foot of the length, especially when I'm working with the longer edge of a quilt or a table runner, so that I can fold it out on itself to be able to fold it back on itself. Otherwise it gets a little tight, but no worries. I mean, it's just fabric and it's just a fold, so take your time. And we're up against another corner here. So again, I unclip, and give myself some finagling room, a little extra move things around kind of room. Fold it, hold it down. So to, again, about 1/4 of an inch before the end of the quilt. And then I back stitch, cut, flip everything back up on itself, and stitch it back down. So here you go. We'll flip it back up. Try to keep the binding even with the bottom of the quilt. And you can see it's kind of feeling a little tuggish, and it's just because I didn't unclip much further. Get it nice and even at that top there. And see those match up right where I pulled that up. Slide it around, start at the end, stitch it down, and we've got one more corner to go before we join our end pieces. Now to join those two pieces to continue this binding all the way around. So I try to set it up where I can actually take this first one, which would be my right hand side, about to the middle of that open gap area. I kind of figure it out, and then I literally cut it right there. Now, make sure you don't cut your quilt, and try to keep that folded in half, and it'll hold itself down in a second. And then we take that offcut piece and we lay that, matching up that edge right there, right over the top. That is the exact width of our binding. So it doesn't matter if you've got a 2-inch binding, a 2.5 inch, 2 1/4 inch. And then we take our left hand side and we bring it all the way over, and then I give it just a little bit of a tug, little tiny tug, so that I can start to see the piece underneath it pull ever so slightly. And then I cut this at the edge of where that would line up with that upside down piece that we had just placed. That gives that little extra snug that we need so that we don't end up with a lump in our binding. Now to sew these together, what we do is we take the right hand side, open it up, right side up, take our left hand side, open it up, right side down, matching that corner perfectly. And at this point in time, you can draw a line, you can pin, you can clip, you can do whatever works best for you. But we want to go exactly from that top corner to the bottom corner, and the bottom corner is kind of blind, so you can't really see it. So I always line it up. Most machines have those little markers or lines, or you can just visually put a little teeny pencil line down so you know where center is on your machine. And then see, right there's my center, and I want to go from the top to the bottom, stitch that together. And I usually don't go super fast on this one because it will want to pull. And there you have it. We have those two pieces sewn together. And I have found, took a little bit of practice, but I have found that this works the absolute best for me. So now we're going to trim off the excess here. So I give it a good, nice, hefty, more than 1/4 inch. And I do a nice little trim right along that. And then I simply finger press it open. So what you'll probably have noticed so far is I've not left my sewing machine at all. So I've literally sat down, attached my binding, and I will not leave my machine until this is absolutely done. And so the nice thing about finger pressing it right here, and the fact that we haven't ironed anything else, we can press it when we're all done, and it works out really well for me. We'll just finish this one up here, start where we left off with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and just nice and easy all the way down, keeping that binding nice and square. And what I'll typically do is make sure that where I finger press those seams down, they stay flat open. So I'll kind of hold them, sometimes I'll pin or clip them. But this way they'll stay down and not fold back on themselves. coming up to the very end, we've matched up our 1/4 inch seam. Do a quick backspace to lock it in place. And there you go. We have attached our binding. Now on to the sewing it down on the front. I have not left my machine. I haven't even gotten up yet, so I'm on a mission to get this one done. And I usually end up starting right about where that last seam that we put together is. That's kind of my starting point, and I usually end up putting that on the bottom of my quilt. It's just me. It's how I work visually. And again, fold it over 1/4 inch, get it started, and nice and slow. So I'm working a different angle here so you can see a little bit more of what's going on underneath the needle. And again, I've got my 1/4 inch foot on. It has a nice little area for me to keep track of exactly where I want my needle. And I like my stitch close, really close to that outer edge. It's just my personal preference. So we're going to just kind of keep moving along just like this until we get to that first corner. At our first corner, I try to do the same thing. I stop about 3 or 4 inches before the edge, and I fold my bottom up first, and then fold the top over on top of that, and then nice and slow right up over to that corner part, and then I'll do like 1 or 2 stitches on that little corner to overlap, just to hold that before I turn. And I have there's a little mark on my foot where I can actually tell right at the edge, where I can line it up to the edge of my binding against the white and the binding, and it's like the perfect place to turn. And then I just keep on stitching. Keep on pressing, keep on sewing the binding on all the way down. Nice and even. So again, a little bit more of a close-up on how this looks. I kind of tuck everything in, and I get that corner nice and snug right in there. Fold that over. I've got little extra threads, so we'll get rid of them. Snip them off at the end or whatever. Sometimes I just tuck them in. And fold that in. In this case, I'm going to grab a clip because that clip really does help hold that corner piece right there. And look at how nice and tight that is. It's a nice little sharp corner. And then just for the sake of helping others out here, I'm going to clip this one down so it's not pulling quite so much. And then off we go. A little bit more stitching down to get to that corner. I'll use my stiletto a lot. For whatever reason, I'm not doing it right here. It might have fallen on the floor. Does that a lot. Go. And turn. So here you can kind of see just how nice and neat that actually looks all the way around. And it's pretty even on the backside, hit and miss. You know, again, this is a table runner, so I'm not overly concerned. I want it to last, but I'm not overly concerned with how perfect it is. Another quick little trick is to grab a quilting glove for the side that actually moves the quilt or the table runner or the potholder or whatever, because it helps hold on to the fabric and keep the fabric stable. This is a little bit different angle, probably not the greatest in that my hands are always in my one hand is almost always in the way, but you can kind of get an idea of how it looks from this side. And then we'll work our way down to the next corner. So let's see if we can show you how this works. I've got that bottom part. I want to fold that up first. Right? Let's see. I can't fold things in my quilting gloves. And then I fold the top part on top, and let's see, there you go. I'm going to throw a clip on that one. And we're going to continue. It matches up fairly well. We're just going to continue on as we go. And we're coming up on one more corner. I think this is our very last corner. Again, we're going to work our way through this. Get rid of some of those spare threads. So we'll roll that bottom section, that bottom part up. Make sure that's nice and flat right in there. Oops. Flip it over. Throw a little flip right there. And then again, I'm going to throw another one a couple of inches down right here just to help hold it so it doesn't sit there and try to pull itself back. Oops. And here we are coming right up to where we started. We'll just finish this up. And would you look at that? And there we have it. Done. Done. And done. No ironing, no fuss, no muss. And this table runner is done. I hope this video helped you. And just please know that it's not something that's just going to happen it's not going to be perfect the first time. Highly recommend you try this a couple dozen times, make some pot holders, do the table runners, things that don't mean as much as a quilt, and just give it a try. It's a nice way to finish things up in a really fast manner. Thanks!